Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with my spoiler-free review for Isabelle and Alexander by Rebecca Anderson. I received an arc of this book from the publisher in exchange for an honest review, so thank you so much to them. And at the time of posting this book actually just came out earlier this week, just a couple of days ago. This book is also in their proper romance line, so it is a romance novel, but there are no explicit scenes in this book. So in this novel, we follow Isabelle Rackham as our main character, and right at the beginning of the book, she has agreed to get married to this man, Alexander. It's sort of like a business merger situation between her family and his, and her and Alexander have both agreed to it. They're agreed to go through with it. Isabelle has always known that she's going to have to make a essentially political or business marriage because of her father's position, and she has accepted this, and she does have hope that she and Alexander will grow to love each other and that she will end up with a loving marriage. But after they get married, things don't seem to be quite going that way. Alexander doesn't really pay attention to her. He seems very cold. He doesn't seem interested in her at all, and Isabelle is starting to feel just really unwanted, very unhappy. This is not really what she thought was going to happen. Alexander is wealthy, but he owns a mill, so he's always busy. He never seems to have time for Isabelle, but then things seem to be looking up. They end up going for a short vacation at one of Alexander's country estates, and they seem to be starting to get to know each other better, possibly getting to care about each other more, and then a terrible accident happens and Alexander actually becomes paralyzed. And so the rest of the book is about them now navigating this essentially brand new marriage in a situation that neither of them anticipated. It's about Isabelle trying to understand how she can best be there for Alexander, and so the two of them trying to find love in the midst of this very unexpected situation. And right off the bat, I really enjoyed this. This is very, very character focused. I think it's good to know that going in, and I feel like a lot of your enjoyment of this book will depend on how much you like Isabelle, the main character, because it is so character focused, and she is the only character that we're really following like the perspective of, although this is in third person, I think. Yeah, so it's third person, but we are following Isabelle the whole time, and luckily I really enjoyed her. I thought she was a really interesting character, just a really interesting blend of personality traits. She's obviously young and a little bit romantic, but she's also very practical. As I said, she has grown up knowing that she will have to make a somewhat loveless marriage, or at least a marriage that's more of a business transaction than anything else, and even knowing that, she still has hope that she can find some kind of happiness, some kind of love, and so seeing her pursue that is just really, I just really enjoyed that. And she also can get very frustrated and very angry because Isabelle is obviously, like, after Alexander's accident, she is not used to taking care of somebody. She wants to support Alexander and to be there for him, but she doesn't really know how. And in addition to that, Alexander himself is not really communicative. He's not really, like, it takes him a while before he's willing to accept Isabelle's help and to accept that it's okay if he needs people to help him. And so I just found Isabelle like a very enjoyable character to follow. She was also very relatable in some moments. Like, there's a point where she makes a list of conversation topics because she's like so anxious about like running out of things to say, which she just found very endearing and very relatable. I would have liked to see more of a focus on Alexander himself since he is the disabled character, but as I said, we are following Isabelle for like the whole novel, so I see why we didn't get that. And I do think that the book did a pretty good job of like when Isabelle would kind of be like, she'd be getting frustrated or angry, or she would be thinking about how Alexander's disability like affected her. I do think the book did a pretty good job of kind of like having Isabelle realize that and then kind of like refocusing, you know, like realizing like, okay, yes, that there are difficulties about Isabelle's situation as well, but the person who should be centered in these discussions of disability is obviously the person with the disability themselves. And then as far as Alexander himself, I did like him. I saw some reviewers saying that they felt he was kind of underdeveloped, and I can definitely see that. But it didn't really bother me. Like, I didn't really feel like that. I think because Isabelle is such a well-written main character that we kind of see him through her eyes, and that kind of gives him, I think, the character that we need, or the characterization that we need. And I think also the fact that Alexander is a very reserved character, especially early on in the book, I think it makes sense why we don't get a lot of like development for him early on. Like, we see, like, we have to pick up on these little moments with him, which I didn't mind because I really like subtle romantic arcs, but I can definitely see why that would be frustrating. And I do think there are some parts where I would have liked to get to know him a little bit better, but even with that, I was really, really invested in their romance. I really, really wanted Isabelle and Alexander to like work things out, and yeah, like I just was very invested in this book. I really liked the romance. I really liked how subtle it was. And I was just very invested in seeing if Alexander and Isabelle could like work out their issues and learn to be there for each other. I also really liked some of the topics this book covers. Obviously this book does deal with disability, specifically in this time period, which is 1850. It's also set in Manchester, I forgot to mention that. And I just found that really interesting, like the way that people and doctors would treat disability. Like some of it is obviously not how we would do it today, but it was, I think, an interesting look at perspectives in the past and treatments in the past. And I also really liked, like, one of my favorite characters is a girl named Glory, who Isabelle makes friends with, and she makes friends with her and her whole family. And I just really loved her. I really loved Glory's family and like the focus this book had, because Glory is also disabled, and I just really love the way that her and her family's story shows that even back then there were families who did the right thing. You know, there were families who did not want to send their loved ones to asylums and who didn't do that, who took care of them at home and who gave them the love and support that they needed. And I just really, really loved that. I really enjoyed Glory as a character and like her whole family as characters. There were also some really interesting discussions of class in this book. So this book is set in a period in England where like there was starting to be slightly more social mobility, in the sense that like this idea of kind of the self-made man was actually becoming acceptable or even like desirable. There were definitely like upper society classes that did not, like, you know, that looked down on that or did not want to encourage that kind of thing. But overall, it was a time of kind of like gradual social change, which I found really interesting. There were even some like small discussions throughout the book of like ethical workplace practices, like the way that Alexander runs his mill and how that is different than the way some other people did. So this book is definitely primarily a romance, but it does touch on some other things, which I did enjoy. And really the only things I disliked, besides those couple of things with Alexander's character that I would have liked to see, the only things that I didn't like about this book is the ending and the epilogue. So as for the ending, it just felt very abrupt to me. Like, it wasn't that I disliked the ending, but it seemed to happen much faster than the rest of the book, and I would have maybe liked there to be, like, I think we needed more build up for that. Maybe that's something that could have been helped with maybe having some of Alexander's point of view throughout the novel. As I said, I did really love Isabelle as a main character, so it's not that I think the book suffered for just following her, but the end of the book was something where I'm like, I think we maybe would have needed something more from Alexander himself to like make the ending really work for me. And then as far as the epilogue, it's just purely personal preference. It's something that I did not enjoy, that I don't like in stories, but I know a lot of other people do. So the ending, I think, could have been made stronger, like with the story, and the epilogue is just like a personal preference thing that I didn't enjoy. But overall, I did really like this. Again, I think it's a very character-focused book. I think you're gonna really need to enjoy Isabelle as a main character, because the story in a way is very focused. Like, it's very much about Isabelle and Alexander, Isabelle trying to figure out how she can best like make this marriage work and be there for Alexander, and also like find her own happiness as well. It does deal with some other issues, and there are some other side characters, but like it's a very focused story, so I can see that not working for everybody. But I personally really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the characters. I didn't mind how like centered or like focused the story was. And I'm also just a sucker for this romance trope, which is like the marriage of convenience that then turns into something more. Like, I just really like that. And I didn't really mention this, but I also really liked the writing. I thought that was done really well also. And I gave Isabelle and Alexander 4 stars. Okay, everybody, so that was my review for Isabelle and Alexander by Rebecca Anderson. Please comment down below and let me know if you plan to pick this book up, or maybe depending on when you're watching this, maybe you've already read it. Let me know what you thought of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!